Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Indie Alaska is an innovative weekly web series capturing the diverse and colorful lifestyle of Alaskans. Real stories of everyday Alaskans at work and play. Supported in part by Alyeska Pipeline Service Company.
The National Weather Service.
Capella and Vega, bright stars in the northish sky. Hey there, stargazers. I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Plot Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida.
And I'm Dean Regas, astronomer for the Cincinnati Observatory. We're here to help you find your way around the sky tonight. Hey James, have you ever heard anyone say that the North Star is the brightest star in the sky?
Who's telling you these lies? The North Star isn't even close to the brightest star.
I know. Take it easy. But this is a common myth.
Sorry, I hear that one way too much.
Well, this time of year, our special pointer stars in the Big Dipper are too low in the sky to show us the way to the North Star. So we have to use another trick.
That's right. We'll show you two bright stars, Vega and Capella, which are in the northwestern and northeastern skies, respectively.
Call them north-ish stars. Let's show you. Okay, we have our sky set up for 9 p.m. facing north. The semi-bright star about halfway up in the sky is the North Star Polaris. No matter what time of night or what time of year, Polaris is always there.
That's what makes it such a great guide. If you can find Polaris, you'll know where north is and never be lost.
The myth that the North Star is the brightest star probably got started because it is the most important star for navigation. So if it's important, it must be bright.
Not at all. In fact, since Polaris doesn't stand out, we usually have to use other stars to point us toward it. The most common trick is to use the stars in the Big Dipper, but in fall...
where's the Big Dipper?
Way too low in the sky to see. I can never find the pointer stars in the end of the Big Dipper spoon on a fall evening. They get lost in the horizon.
But never fear, we have a backup trick for just such an occasion. With our wide-angle view, we can see the two brightest stars that are almost in the northern sky. On the left, or to the northwest, you'll see our old friend from the summer triangle, the bright blue star Vega.
On the right, or to the northeast, you'll find a new friend for the fall and winter months, the bright yellow and very twinkly star named Capella. They are each about equidistant from the North Star, and as the night goes on, Capella will rise higher while Vega drops lower toward the horizon.
Vega is the brightest star in the cute little constellation Lyra the Harp. Zoomed in, we can see the four semi-bright stars that make a parallelogram shape. If you have good skies and great eyes, you might be able to make out this shape on a November evening.
Vega is one of our closer neighbor stars at only 25 light years away. Of course, a light year is almost 6 trillion miles, so it's not exactly around the corner from us.
And above Vega is a little star with multiple secrets. Its name is Epsilon Lyrae, but has the nickname the Double Double. In a pair of binoculars, the one star resolves into two, and through a good telescope, the two stars become four.
So, if you lived on a planet around Epsilon Lyrae, you'd have 4 blue suns in your sky. When would it get dark?
Now we're getting a closer look at Capella. When it's low in the sky, Capella is a notorious twinkler.
A notorious what?
Twinkler. Every fall, people ask me about the crazy twinkling star in the northeast. And although all stars twinkle, this one seems to attract special attention.
I guess Capella has a sparkling personality?
Yep. And like the Double Double, Capella is actually 4 stars. 2 are yellow like our sun, and the other 2 are tiny red dwarf stars.
Capella is part of the pentagon-shaped constellation Auriga the Charioteer. With a lot of imagination, you can see him driving his chariot while holding 3 goats.
Goats?
Yep, 3 little stars to the right of Capella.
Ah, I see them now.
It may be tough to find the North Star without the Big Dipper each fall,
But you can use Vega in the northwest and Capella in the northeast to guide your way as you
keep looking up.
This special video is a part of AOPA's Project Pilot, a new program for people considering taking the first step in the adventure of a lifetime, learning to fly. Hello, I'm Phil Boyer, president of the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association. We're known to most people as AOPA for short. And it isn't hard to spot our members at the local airport. Just look for the cars and airplanes displaying the AOPA wings. Through AOPA's Project Pilot, we've invited our more than 320,000 members to think of people they know, people like you, who would enjoy the benefits of becoming a pilot. You've been nominated by an AOPA member to receive the special AOPA Project Pilot student kit that this video is a part of. That member has also volunteered to act as your personal mentor if you decide, as we hope you will, to become one of the nearly 700,000 Americans holding a pilot's license. In the next half hour or so, we'll share with you the answers to many questions people ask about flight training. We'll ask noted airline captain and aviation journalist Barry Schiff to explain the basics of getting a pilot's license. And finally, we'll take you along on a student pilot's first flying lesson. More detailed information is also included in your student kit. You'll see that winning your wings is far from impossible. Some 70,000 people, from high school kids to grandmothers, do it every year. From airline captains in the cockpits of jetliners to students in single-engine, two-place trainers, pilots get something extra out of life because they've discovered one of life's most exciting challenges. And if you're like most people who fly, you enjoy a challenge. These women and men have also discovered how to squeeze more time and more fun out of personal and business travel, or just a weekend out and about. Flying is an activity enjoyed by the entire family, whether on a day trip to the beach or that long-awaited vacation at Disney World. Fun has been the key word for my wife and me as we've enjoyed the many different places easily accessible to light planes. As you can see in these home videos, an airplane has provided many enjoyable days, weekends, or even full vacations visiting exciting new places and making new friends. Almost everyone has a place they can get away from it all, be it mountain cabin, lake resort, or family homestead. For us, it's been wherever we can fly, which is just about anywhere. Forget crowded airline terminals. Just a few hours of flying can bring you relaxation and enjoyment that is a world apart from the everyday, such as the Bahamas, made even more enjoyable with good friends. Scenic Calgary, Canada. Or a fun fly-in breakfast complete with personally guided tours of their craft by proud owners. After 20 years of exploring the United States by air, we even visited Europe with our own plane. Learning to fly is easier than you think. It's surprisingly affordable, and it's safe. In fact, the safety record of light airplanes has never been better. Now, I could go on telling you just how great flying is, but instead, you should hear it from people just like you. Just like you, except at some point, they took that first step and made a phone call or visited the airport and got started on the adventure of a lifetime. Adventure and excitement certainly describe this man, the head coach of the NFL's Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Sam Wyche. You couldn't find a busier person who still finds the time to fly.
The opportunity to fly would also be functional for me because I do a lot of banquet speaking. I go places and need to be somewhere at 5:30 in the afternoon and would still like to get back that evening and not kill all day long in an airport or in a car driving somewhere. Plus just the fun of it. It's relaxing for me.
Relaxation isn't a word you would normally associate with being a pilot. But for Sam and a lot of us, that's just what it is.
As a football coach, I'm constantly worried about what players to play, whether to go for it on fourth down, what strategy to employ, and I can get up in that plane on a Friday afternoon or a Saturday afternoon before a Sunday game and lose myself. And for an hour, finding holes in the clouds, I can forget about football because your attention has to be totally on that airplane when you're in the airplane. It is a serious business, but it's a very relaxing one.
Sam has to be pretty smart to be an NFL head coach, but you don't have to be a genius to learn to fly.
The skill is learnable by just about everybody. In the mental part of it, just like anything else, if you put the time in and do the studying that you have to do, which is more fun than study, you can learn it.
Even though Sam now owns an airplane, he started out by renting. As a matter of fact, about 2/3 of the pilot population rent when they want to fly. And renting definitely has advantages.
The nice thing about renting an airplane is you go out and you get in the airplane, you fly somewhere, and maybe you're in the air for an hour, and once you get there, you have lunch or you visit friends and you're there for 3 or 4 hours and get back in the plane and fly back. You may have had the plane all day, but you're only paying for the time that you're actually flying the airplane. So a 2-hour cost may benefit you a full day's enjoyment somewhere else.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for tonight's show. On the satellite, you can see a lot of clear skies here on the infrared across the southeast coast, a lot of the Gulf of Alaska right up into the interior, all due to upper high pressure. Roughly in this area right there, as you can see the clouds rotating up and then off to the east and then dropping south into the northwest Canada. Some clouds and moisture and a pretty good storm system. Low pressure area there south of southeast of the Fox Islands. That kicking the winds up 25 to 45 miles an hour across the Alaska Peninsula, and even higher gusts reported today across some areas of Bristol Bay. King Salmon and those locations had occasional gusts up toward 50 miles an hour, and a lot less here along the southwest coast over the southwest interior. And then we had northerlies here from the Bering Strait, increased across St. Lawrence Island, gust size 35 miles an hour, and down across the Pribilofs. And then wrapping in, Nikolsky there had gusts near or over 60 miles an hour at times today. And then different situation over toward Unalaska, with it becoming a little more easterly here with this occluded front pulling westward, and then the moisture on down to the southwest. Some rain earlier on, lightening up today, but Kodiak picked up a little over half an inch of rain, or about a half an inch in the last 24 hours. Unalaska about that same amount, 0.46 inches, and roughly nearly the same rainfall amounts here along the Alaska Peninsula, Cold Bay, but probably a little bit heavier in more of the upslope areas there of the terrain, and a narrow band of light snow with that feature there. And on up the west coast, this whole pattern shifting westward a little bit there with high pressure again over the mainland areas, as it has been today. It'll probably stay that way for the next several days. On the satellite here, different shot, you can see the moisture streaming northwestward, and as you roll this along again, actually this is from yesterday's picture. So yesterday, that's why that low is missing. Had moisture and clouds here, but still this southeast to northwest flow, and the ridging more dominant down here over the southeast coast up into western Canada, and then the northerly winds back out here to the west. And for today, we'll see that low here just south of the again, the Alaska Peninsula areas and Unalaska with the front. Earlier today, roughly in about this position, kind of a double structure here. Another one up in here with a trough extending northward. This whole pattern shifting westward, northwestward, so acting as a warm front in this area. And then something of a cold front roughly in this location, the gusty winds. Again, that brought the rainfall to Kodiak. High pressure over the eastern interior. Again, down across the southeast coast, light winds, most areas. Some of the channel area locations here over the Panhandle, especially up to the north, had some gustier winds. For example, Skagway seeing gusts up to about 40 miles an hour or so, and that will probably continue through tonight into tomorrow and then begin to diminish a little bit after that as the gradient relaxes somewhat. And weak cold front up along the northwest coast. That'll bring some areas of light snow with the heaviest amounts right along the coast, but even those amounts will be quite light, nothing significant expected there. And fair off to the east, excuse me, light winds from the central and eastern coast all the way down the Gulf of Alaska. Still looking at these locally gusty northeast winds there over the channeled areas of the southeast coast, and gale force winds continue tonight here for the Kodiak Island area, Alaska Peninsula, also gale force winds in the forecast for the eastern Aleutians, and staying pretty brisk along the coast here with southeasterlies anywhere from 15 to 35 miles an hour and gusts to 40 miles an hour, still from Cape Newenham this evening, but those tend to diminish a little bit and actually increase a little more across the island there, and then those will shift up into the Barren Islands later tonight and tomorrow for gales in that area. More high pressure out to the west, but another front right on its heels there, pushing in toward the eastern Aleutians. And for tomorrow, not much change here, probably less in the way of mid and high level clouds, so mostly clear over the interior, clear and cool, dry all the way down along the southeast coast, all of the Gulf of Alaska. Then you get into the clouds here over the southern Kenai Peninsula with a chance of rain, sprinkles from Seldovia, but periods of rain there, Kodiak Island, easterlies 15 to 30 miles an hour, a few higher gusts, especially up over the Barren Islands there, gusts 50 miles an hour through the Barrens on into Kamishak Bay. And again, that's going to keep temperatures on the mild side there back into the 40s again, like you saw today, and gusty winds and some rain there for the Alaska Peninsula. Back into the eastern Aleutians, kind of a wet day tomorrow with those northeast winds, but not too terribly strong. Looks like the strongest winds will be down to the south there. And then this front advancing westward, weakening, and really now west of the Pribilofs, this weak band right through here bringing some areas of light rain and snow along the coast there up toward Nunivak Island, and that front weakening and stretching out over the western Aleutians. So high pressure again from the southeast coastal areas, and really aloft here, the strongest centers there over the northwest Canada area. And then for Saturday, again, just high pressure continuing to dominate all of the mainland areas and the Panhandle for cool, dry conditions with light winds, but except along this frontal boundary, Kodiak, periods of rain again with kind of some areas of light rain or rain and snow mixed, or snow, particularly for the Kilbrook Mountain areas, up toward Nunivak Island, and breaking out behind the front, and some kind of a damp day there, but nothing in the way of any heavy rain or significant winds for the Alaska Peninsula. Rain and wind, breezing conditions there with that low persisting or pulling up just west of Nikolsky, so it'll be pretty, you'll see the lower flying conditions there probably across the entire Aleutian chain will be here over the Fox Islands with better conditions back out to the west. And temperatures today over the Panhandle range from 35 at Skagway, where they had the gusty northeast winds, to 41 here across Prince of Wales Island, 41 Cordova, Copper River Basin, Gulkana, 18 degrees, 40 degrees in Talkeetna with a 34 in Palmer. Bikini is up to 42 today and a 51 down at Homer. That's the same temperature they had up at the Denali Park Visitor Center. Fairbanks 23, 26 over at Delta, 30 degrees at Tanana. McGrath up to 40 today. and 10 degrees at Fort Yukon, while Anaktuvuk had 21, and quite mild on the western Arctic coast, lower to mid-30s in that area, but Dead Horse at 16, mid to upper 30s across Kotzebue Sound, 40 at Nome, as well as Unalakleet, really near 40 all along the Yukon Delta coast, St. Michael down to Ammonik, mid-40s here over the southwest interior, with 48 at Iliamna and 50 in King Salmon and 54 degrees today in Port Haydn. Looks like the warm spot in the state, with upper 40s out over the eastern Aleutians, near 40 there over the central areas, as well as the Pribilofs. And the lows for tonight, single numbers, but all these, the plotted numbers anyway, are all on the this side of zero, except for Fort Yukon there. Some areas could drop a little below zero, of course, across the flats areas, but much milder here over the Bristol Bay zone, Alaska Peninsula, lower 40s for Dutch Harbor and Unalaska, mid-30s for the Pribilof, so quite mild conditions. Even along the Arctic coast, lows in the 20s and mid to upper 20s in some cases here over the Kotzebue Sound areas, and pretty mild for the Seward Peninsula and southeast coast with the clear skies ranging 20 to 30 degrees. For the highs tomorrow, teens and 20s up over the northeast interior, mostly in the mid to upper 20s, warmest again here over the western regions of the northern part of the state, well above freezing there for the Seward Peninsula, and upper 40s for Bristol Bay once again, and lower to mid 40s for the Panhandle. Flying weather, good VFR here, much of the mainland areas, patchy stuff up along the eastern Arctic coast and locally along areas of the western coast, but that offshore flow should keep VFR pushed out, or marginal VFR pushed back to the west. So there'll be some areas here of marginal conditions down along the coastline, and the IFR, Kodiak Island, the Pacific side of the peninsula, areas of marginal VFR over the eastern Bering Sea to about Atka, VFR to the west, VFR, Gulf of Alaska and the Panhandle. For the passes, Anaktuvuk, both approaches for both Anaktuvuk and Adigan. Good VFR tomorrow, and Lake Clark and Merrill VFR continuing tomorrow and probably the next day as well. Rainy, open, windy, wide open. Isabel, both approaches VFR. Mentesta, same forecast. Tanita, good VFR. Portage, VFR. Maybe a few clouds here, possibly over the western Prince William Sound areas, but I think they'd be of the VFR variety if they occur at all. Chilkoot and White looks pretty good. And the freezing levels with high pressure aloft, freezing levels are quite high, but at the surface, down to the coastline, this for late tonight, early tomorrow morning, back like this, but the warm air aloft there up over the eastern part of the state down into the northern Panhandle, and then cooling off out to the west. Icing threats possibly in the 9 or below, or from the freezing level to 9 to 11,000 feet of the rime, or possibly mixed varieties here, but light with just isolated icing here through the Kodiak Island area, up back along the Bristol Bay coast, and then kind of hit and miss out here over the Aleutians and the Bering Sea. Upper level wind flow chart showing this tremendous area high pressure over the eastern interior. This will start retreating back to the southeast a little bit over the next 24 to 36 hours, but basically you're going to hold on to a ridge over all of mainland Alaska for the next 2 or 3 days while this system stays out here to the west. 9,000 feet, southeasterlies 15 to 20 knots to 20 to 30 knots, 50 knots across Kodiak Island, a band of winds right through here, and then that extends up along the southwest coast and toward the Bering Strait. Otherwise, the interior 10 to 20 knots, mostly from the southeast, 30 knots from the southeast to the Fox Islands, and northerlies 20 knots, but then that next front coming in 40 knots southeast towards Shimia, about the same pattern at 3,000 feet here. Easterlies up to 40 knots, Kodiak Island into the Alaska Peninsula and the Bristol Bay area, lighter up over the inland areas, 5 to 15 knots, and 5 to 10 over the Panhandle, southeast 30 for the eastern Arctic coast. And for turbulence, occasional moderate chop, Kodiak Island, across the Aleutian Range, northeast Bristol Bay, all the way to Nunivak Island, Alaska Peninsula, out to west of Nikolsky. And sea ice looking something like this. Still a lot of open area out here over the northern Bering Sea, Norton Sound. Filling in though gradually. It's kind of a slow going process here for the Chukchi Sea as well. And for the Marines, easterlies to northeast, around 15 knots for the coastal areas, higher gusts over the inside waters. North 30, small craft advisory still for the Lynn Canal area, dropping back to 20 knots on Saturday, staying light over the most of the Panhandle, getting a little more southeasterly down here over the extreme southern portions. And for the south central tomorrow, 10 to 20 knots, light northeast breezes, 20 knots south of the Forelands, gales for the Barrens to start with, and Kamishak Bay with small craft advisories for the western Gulf Coast, gradually diminishing off to the east. And for Saturday, easterlies at 15 here for the North Gulf Coast, a little bit lower, but still small craft advisories for the Barren Islands down along Kodiak Island, or actually all of the waters around Kodiak Island, and even roughly for the Kamishak Bay area, 10 to 15 with the strongest wind south of the Forelands. For the Bristol Bay zone, 30 knots to 35 knots here south of the peninsula tomorrow. Saturday, southeasterlies, 20 knots. Bristol Bay could still carry some small craft advisories briefly, mostly in gusts. And for the Aleutians, kind of a variable wind pattern here with that next front coming into the west, and then looks like easterlies out here around that low center. Diminishing a little bit, holding on possible gales that are southwest of Nikolsky, otherwise more light and variable out to the west. And for the Bering Sea, have a great evening. I ran out of time.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.